Ever wonder how a breakthrough idea actually becomes reality? Hi, I'm Susan Lindner, and this is the Innovation Storytellers show, where I sit down with the change makers behind the world's most inspiring innovations to learn how they did it and the stories that help them make it happen. If you've ever had a big idea or want to tell yours in a more powerfully connected way, you're in the right place. I promise you'll get new ideas for how to tell a better story to your audiences too. So let's dive in. Welcome back. I'm Susan Lindner, your host of Innovation Storytellers. This is the place where we come to learn how to tell better stories about the breakthroughs that we are working on every day. And it's the reason why I like to bring on consultants sometimes to the show. I know you're accustomed to hearing chief innovation officers from incredible Fortune 500 companies, but so many consultants also wind up having that background, but have taken the very brave step to go and start their own innovation consultancies. And as a result, have a both sides of the aisle insight into what's going on in innovation, both as innovation consultants and also having been in the innovation seat at the corporate level. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to invite Robyn Bolton onto the show today. She is the founder and chief navigator at MileZero, a consultancy that helps leaders of $100 million and up companies to use innovation to confidently and repeatedly grow revenue, which we all know is the indicator of whether or not our innovations are actually doing well in the marketplace. She previously worked as a partner at the consulting firm founded by Clay Christensen and was a brand manager at P&G, where she helped develop and launch Swiffer, which we're going to be talking about today. Robyn holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and a BS in marketing from Miami University, and you will find her articles in Fast Company, Harvard Business Review online, the New York Times, and NPR's Marketplace. So, Robyn, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm so thrilled to be here.
So, you go to HBS. It's a place that's known for its pretty, conventional thinking, let's say. It's not to say some brilliant thinkers, of course, haven't come from HBS. But how did you get to innovation? What was your process in getting there?
Yes, you're right. HVS is very good at kind of codifying the norm, so to
Mm.
speak. And I think I was lucky because I started my career in innovation before going to HVS. So as you know, when I was at HVS, I'm like, oh, but that doesn't work here. That doesn't work if you're trying to do something new. So I actually got into innovation straight out of undergrad. And, I graduated from Miami University, as you mentioned, and then I went to work in brand management at Procter and Gamble, which is is truly kind of another place that loves to codify things and have a process and a system and uh, has built a reputation for innovation. But when I joined, it did not have one. It was just a branded company. So those early experiences in innovation are kind of what got me to where I am today.
Mm. And so you go to P&G, one of the most, vaunted companies for creating over 100 plus years, right, of creating incredible products and service that every single one of us have in our homes, whether we want to or not. There's no escaping P&G. Right. If you went to the bathroom today, chances are you met P&G a lot
Yes.
today. So, um, so tell us what it was like working on Swiffer.
Yeah, it was I loved it
Yeah.
because, I came into P&G. It was a time really kind of their first foray into building new brands after decades of having not built brands. And we had an amazing general manager VP who I think in my first week, called me into his office, the usual meet and greet, and he pulled out a 3-inch thick 3-ring binder and said, "These are all of the approved memo styles at P&G."
Memo styles.
Memo styles.
Right. For my younger listeners, a memo is a document that you would send to a colleague through interoffice mail, oftentimes in a manila envelope, and it would say to, from, subject, much like an email today, and then information in shortened form. Back to you,
Yes.
Robyn. A memo.
Yes. A
Yeah.
memo. And there were 3 inches of approved memos. And he said, if I ever see you using one of these, I'll fire you.
Nice. Nice.
And so it just so perfectly set the tone for the culture he wanted to create in the innovation space. And I was like, game on, because I've always had a slight issue with authority. I think it's a healthy disrespect for authority.
Perfecto. You fit right into the innovation
And
world.
and so yeah, so I spent my first year out in the real world working on developing and preparing to launch Swiffer.
Mm.
And w- so many big lessons along the way, but one of them that, I just have to share with you and your listeners, because this is all about the power of storytelling, is the 2 stories that we took in to meet with the C-suite to get permission to launch Swiffer. So, Swiffer had been in development for years. We had been in test market in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and Pittsfield, Massachusetts for a full year. And the test markets went phenomenally. I mean,
Mm.
I think, double or tripled our revenue projections. When we were in the market, we were like, there were out of stocks at stores, so we'd be like running into a grocery store, gathering as many cases as we could, and running out, technically stealing, to get the product to another store. There was like a gray market for Swiffer. People were selling it out of the trunks of their cars at high school football
Gosh,
games. It
really?
just like it was wonderful and bizarre. And so we're like, this is an amazing story with no, revenue numbers to put around it.
Yeah.
And so that was one story. The other story, though, was P&G has a process, as all big companies do, where all new products had to go through a certain kind of basis test. And the basis test would take all of your inputs for your marketing plan and your budget and all of that, and then predict what your sales would be for the first several years. And so we did all of that, and basis came back and said, that Swiffer would be the 3rd poorest launch in the history of the database.
Whoa. Do you recall what were the factors that led it to believe that? I feel like I'm talking to HAL 2000 instead of, ChatGPT, right? This
Yes,
kind of marketing.
totally. It actually took us months to figure it out. And the flaw in the thinking was that the test, if you have a whole new product, it tries to find the closest analog.
Okay.
And so with Swiffer, it's like, oh, the closest analog is a broom, which I think you buy one in your life.
Right.
And the closest analog to the disposable cloths is a can of dusting spray, which maybe you buy two in your life. And so its repeat rate just was terrible. So it's basically like you're going to sell one box of Swiffer and that's all you ever sell to anyone ever again. So it's completely flawed thinking, but it was also such a black box that we didn't have that insight and information when we went in to present for permission to launch.
Oh.
So, we go in like in the big kind of stereotypical fancy dark wood conference room, CEOs there, COO, CFO, all the C's, and we present the
Your
data.
PowerPoint or
Yeah. Yeah,
awesome.
we're presenting the PowerPoint. Here's the bases results, but look at all of these videos of people who love Swiffer and all of the actual results from the test markets. And, so we're trying to slant the story, but we still have to be honest and present both sides. And the CEO said, he's like, that's great that you guys had such a great test market. It's also 2 small cities in the US. This bases test, we have run every product we've ever launched through it. Now, and they're talking about like new sense of Tide, a new flavor of Crest,
It's an
which,
iterative
right.
result, right? Yeah.
They're like, and it has never been wrong.
Oh, it's like an oracle,
It is like an oracle, and the oracle is saying, you will fail on a historical level.
like new Coke level.
Yes, like like this is that bad. And he's like,
Yeah.
I cannot take that risk. No, the project just shut down.
Mm.
And of course, we're crestfallen. But the COO, who had actually gone to the test market a couple of times. So he had actually seen this firsthand. He was like, wait, I totally disagree. And so a debate occurred between them, each of them referencing the two different stories that they latched onto. And ultimately, the COO, who, little aside, P&G is promote from within. And
Mhm.
so in order to become CEO, you have to work in brand management and work your way up. So the COO was next in line. Everyone knew it. It's going to happen in the next year. He was going to become CEO. And he looked at the CEO. He's like, I'm so convinced that the data is wrong and the test markets are right. We need to launch this. And if we don't, you can fire. And if it fails, you can fire me.
Whoa, that is a high stakes conversation, Robyn.
That is it. I mean, it was just, and I would say they're like freshly out of school. They're like, whoa, this is amazing. And so the CEO's like, great, you're going to be the next CEO. So yeah, let's do it. And that is why Swiffer exists today, is because one story won out.
And one person was willing to put their reputation on the line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have this conversation often on the show with like, how strong is your advocate? Right?
Yes.
Are you marching into into that boardroom and saying, I am willing to die for this. This is the hill I'm willing to die on. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, we do not have an individual. And I was just at a meeting with the ILO, the Institute for Innovation at Large Organizations, on Monday in New York. Shout out to Peter Temis, who runs a great organization, who found that in the event that you put your reputation on the line and you back an innovation that does not work, and you are senior manager, not yet C-suite,
Mhm.
you are most likely cutting yourself off from 3 promotions in the event that that innovation fails. So the risk, the reputational risk to the innovator is so great. So you lose out on certainly 2 raise opportunities in your career if that's the case. And so I just found it fascinating. I find it fascinating that people are willing to do this and are
Mhm.
take the risk on a glorified mop, right?
Yeah.
A
Yes.
glorified broom.
Yeah. Yeah. It,
Too.
it it's sad. The data you shared of missing out on three promotion is sad, but it's not surprising. And it speaks to why people don't take the risk. Because if you're
And
thinking
why
about it, you're like,
corporations struggle to innovate.
right, like, why would I do that? Ostensibly for like, it's not like it's my startup. It's not like it's my invention. I'm going to reap the rewards. It really is like reputational risk and losing out on raises and prestige and things like that. So would you find people who are willing to take the risk? It's amazing. You also have to equip them with the stories, the data, and in this case, the experience of like when you're in Cedar Rapids, Iowa at a high school football game and seeing people selling Swiffer out of the trunk of their car, like, and you see that you're like, this is not just a brew. There's something different going on here, and I don't understand it, but it's happening.
Mhm. Right. Something's happening here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard a rumor about Swiffer that I need settled once for all because I think I've talked about it on the show and I don't want to speak incorrectly. So I remember reading about the Italian rollout of Swiffer. Are you
Okay.
familiar with this case study? I think this was a
I
nice
don't.
study. So the theory goes, and maybe you can't confirm or deny it, but that the way that Swiffer was marketed, the story that was told to, and this might have been in Good to Great, that the story that was told to, based on US case studies, is that women were cutting down the amount of time necessary to clean their homes with the Swiffer. It was an efficiency tool. It was amazing how much free time it gave women. It was a liberator of
Mhm.
the tedious task of cleaning and actually made it fun. And so that same marketing message was taken and tested in Italy, and it said, cut down on 4 hours of cleaning to one, like something to that degree, something to that effect. And women in Italy who take a lot of pride in keeping a clean house and doing an incredibly thorough job. It wasn't just about cleaning and doing it. It was about you could eat off my floors. That there was an effort and a technique and a pride associated with the amount of time spent cleaning as proof that you were cleaning well. And so Swiffer died in Italy
Mhm.
initially because it did not speak to the cleaning capability of the tool rather than the speed, efficiency, productivity, free time that you got from it. Because folks weren't looking for more time. They were looking for a
Yep.
better clean.
Yep. That story is 100% true.
Wow. Good. Okay.
So
So I've not been lying
it,
to my listeners. Great. Thank you.
no, you have not been lying. That story is actually 100% true. And I can tell you that because I was on the team that was doing the research in Italy. This is when I switched
Mhm.
over to work on WetJet. And I vividly remember WetJet was going to be P&G's first global launch, where they were going to launch everything at the same time,
Which is
every country
Swiffer
at the same time.
with cleaning
Yes.
liquid, right? For
Swiffer
our
with
listeners
cleaning liquid.
abroad who might not know it by that name.
Yes. And thank you for clarifying. And we were doing research in Italy. We were going into people's homes. And there were one thing we noticed was that, those kind of marble buffing machines that you see in
Sure.
the lobbies? People had home versions of that.
Oh my God, that is dedication to your marble.
And so when you would ask women, like, okay, show me how you clean the floor. We quickly noticed consistently they all had cleaning outfits, like specific clothes that they cleaned in. They essentially baptized their floors, like a bucket of water, throw it over the marble, Cinderella style hands down scrubbing, and then breaking out the marble buffing machine. And it was because exactly as you described that the amount of time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears you put into keeping your home clean directly relates to how much you love your family.
Mm.
And so if you try to do less, it means you love your family less.
Clearly, clearly, which
Clearly.
this explains a lot to my family.
And so we actually came back and we're like, you cannot launch WetJet, which is, even more of a time saver because it replaces a mop. You can't launch it essentially in Southern Europe, where that is very much kind of part of the culture.
Mm. Wow, a baptism. Yeah, you're screwing with people's religion at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. It was wild. And, coming from an American background, I'm like, I don't understand this at all. And it was cross generation. It was cross, economic stratosphere. Just, it didn't matter. If you were a woman and you had a floor, this is what you did.
Wow. And did you find men doing this level of cleaning as well?
No, no,
Mm.
actually, there was one. I have to share the story. It's a bit risque, but it's a great short story. One of the in-home visits we did, we were talking to an older woman who straight out of central casting for an Italian mama. She's like as wide as she is tall, just perfect. And so she, as all the women did, excused herself to go change to prepare to clean. And she did not come out in a cleaning outfit. She came out naked.
What?
Yeah, completely naked, which now, this is why I say, like, if you go in and do research, always carry a notebook, so at the very least, you can hide behind it if something happens. And so we're trying to be professional, and, I'm there with 2 guys from R&D, I'm like, "Oh, why do you choose to clean this way?" And she's like, "'Cause my husband likes it."
Wow.
And that's when we decided to cut the interview short and just
We're gonna leave you two to it.
yeah, yeah, we'll just good luck with that buffing machine, we're out.
This is a ritual of a whole other nature.
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Sounds great.
So, I'm curious, even with an advocate like that at the table who's willing to put his entire career on the line for this, um, there's still detractors in the room, right?
Oh, yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about, telling the right story, right? Certainly got that person, got your CEO on board, but there are other, I'm curious about what other kind of hurdles exist to getting the story out, especially spreading it through the organization. I imagine you probably had a couple of camps inside of P&G at the time who are like, I trust the Macy's machine. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Trust the Macy's machine. There was a lot of resistance actually from sales because, just the Swiffer box took up more space and, where this was going to get shelved in the store. So there was, you know, sales was conveying a lot around retailers aren't going to accept this. We have to change it. And it's about not just having like one great story to tell. You
Mhm.
have to tell that story over and over and over and over again and highlight different aspects of the story in each conversation. And I remember actually my boss was working with sales, telling the same story that she had been telling for probably 9 months at this point. And for whatever reason, the way she told the story, all of a sudden the sales guy was like, "Oh, well, why didn't you say that before? That makes sense. We can use that." It was like, she's been telling that for 9 months, but there's something about just, the turn of phrase or a different emphasis on something that it broke through.
Mm. I think this is a lesson that every innovator needs to hear is I can't tell you how many times I work with companies that are like, we just need one story that's really going to sell this.
Mm.
And then I was like, well, that doesn't exist.
No.
There's not one story that moves every person uniformly to the door. There's so many stories. People think there's one story that got people to stand outside of an Apple store to buy the iPhone. You know, everyone is motivated by so many different things. We're such multifaceted creatures. And so I like to help um, clients think about what are the chapters of the story that you need.
Yes.
So
Yep.
maybe it's the origin story. How did we come to this breakthrough?
Mhm.
It may be the value story. Let me tell you about why it matters and its bottom line impact. Let me tell you a customer story about why so and so loved it. But I'm so curious what your what your naked customer was going to do with the Swiffer. But um,
Yeah. Again, we left. We didn't want to ask. Don't need to
yeah.
know.
And then, there's the product story
Yeah.
and, thinking about this beautiful thing and how it got made, and the engineering and the techniques that went into it. And the last piece, so these are 5 chapters for me. The final one is the vision. Where is this product going to go so that even as a disconnected consumer at the moment or a disconnected middle manager who says, "Do I take a risk on this?" Can you show me a future pathway? If this product succeeds, what's next? What do you
Mhm.
envision will happen next? And so part of that is an imagine if story.
Yes.
Imagine if this goes well, let's talk about what the cascading benefits are for the company, for your division, for this technology, for our sales team, our marketing team, our brand. And
Yeah.
so innovators need to be receptive to creating those 5 different stories as a start, and there may be more that we're not even touching on now, but those are the layers that need to be built in order to make sure that the story keeps going, that it doesn't
Yes.
stop in the event that that is not the lever that moved that listener.
Yes, exactly. You have to have, and I love how you broke it down the 5 stories. And then you almost need variations of the story based on who you're telling the story to, because different
Mhm.
people will care about different things. And then one of the other things I saw, this is in my work with another big company, was the importance of timing.
Hmm.
And that,
That.
so this was the timing aspect. I was working with Nike actually, many years ago. And the chief sustainability officer at the time was seeing that Nike was doing incredible innovation in their core business, but, digital innovation, business model innovation, um, thinking beyond what they were currently doing, that wasn't happening. And it wasn't happening because, the vision wasn't there. You couldn't tell the continued story. Several chapters were missing. And so she spent, I think, probably 2 or 3 years advocating in those C-suite meetings of we need to set up an innovation capability. We need to, you know, think more broadly about it. And she just kept pounding the drum and it was just nobody was biting.
Mm.
And then during actually it was just kind of like an annual, annual budget review. Everyone sends in their operating plans. The CEO made a comment and said, when it comes to innovation, I feel like I'm playing poker in the dark. I'm just setting out bets, but I don't know what I'm betting on.
Mm.
And she seized on that moment in time and said, what if we can turn on the lights?
Mm.
And so her whole approach, which originally was, we need to do business model, innovate digital, and we need to do all this other innovation. She's like, let me just start with turning on the lights for you, which is pulling together a portfolio of all the innovation that's getting worked on so that you can see it. And then, in her mind, then I'll point out the gaps and then you'll see the gaps and then we'll get permission. And, you know, through working with her on that, eventually we did get, a business model incubator built and it, you know, built and launched so many interesting business models for Nike. But the timing and the framing of like, this is where you can start. And there's this vision. That combination is what made her successful.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. That's a great, and it's a reminder to listeners too is, what are the drivers that your decision makers are really responding to or haven't responded to yet that you keep maybe pounding the same story, but we're not actually opening any doors. We might need other chapters or we might need other stimuli. So
Mhm.
maybe it's timing, right? Maybe it's a legislative change. Maybe it's a disruptor that's entering the marketplace now. Maybe it's huge new opportunities in emerging markets or something else. Are you really expanding the capacity of the story to say this is where my product could fit and what are the stimuli, to create a story that's actually going to resonate. So I just love how you brought that all together, Robin. Um, I'm also really curious about so you had the fine opportunity to work with Clay Christensen, right? Everyone who listens to this show is a fan. Um, and I'm so fascinated with some of the takeaways you got from you were there for 9 years. Um, some of the takeaways you got from working in an environment with one of the, real academic and practical originators of um yeah, jobs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, jobs to be done. That is a hill that I will die on. I fully subscribe to it, mainly because it goes beyond how I, classically trained at P&G, which was, you know, very in the jobs to be done language, very functional. What are people doing? How are they doing it? When are they doing it? What are they wearing or not when they're doing it? Um, and expands into emotional and social factors in decision making. And, one of the things that as I've done more and more work, I've realized like, as humans, we decide with our hearts and we justify with our heads. You know, this is how we're wired. And it is, you can focus all you want on the functional jobs. And those are often, table stakes. Like the car has to stop. I don't care how beautiful it is. If it doesn't stop, it's not in the consideration set.
Mm.
But it's the emotional and social jobs to be done and aspects of it that is what sets you apart, what differentiates you and your innovation, and what draws people into the stories and makes them care and makes build the loyalty. So jobs to be done, like I said, hill I will die on because of the social and emotional aspects of it.
Mm. So, we've had many conversations on this show about why jobs to be done, kind of has a limit, almost, or it doesn't take into account the power and dynamics of brand, right?
Hmm.
The job to be done is fantastic. It gets me from point A to point B, but it doesn't explain my irrational obsession with buying Heinz ketchup versus all the other ketchups, which are cheaper, more nutritious, more available, whatever it may be. I'm always just going to go back to Heinz.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I think there are two reasons for it. One is for some reason we've all convinced ourselves that when we go into business and we're in our office and we're doing businessy things, that we are completely logical and rational beings, and that somehow we stop being human and become perfectly logical Vulcans for the Star Trek fans out there. We don't have emotion. It's all logic. And that's just not true. We never stop being human. But that's where the justification with our heads come in is we'll find the data to justify what we want to do. The other reason I think it is because Clay didn't really believe in brands. He believed very strongly that if you nailed the job to be done, and it was often a functional job in his examples, that's all you needed. So he would often talk about I forget who the manufacturer is, but a tool called a Sawzall. And he's like, this is the perfect example of a job to be done because this thing saws everything that you would need to saw in your home. And they named it a Sawzall. And you know exactly what it is and what it does. And this is the beacon of what we should aspire to. And I would just cringe every time he said it, because I have my brand management background, but also because, like, it's just not how the world works.
Mm.
There are prestige brands for a reason. We pay more for, the $100,000 car than we do for the $30,000 car, even though they both get us from A to B. There's so much emotion and social considerations that goes into what we buy that great Sawzall, great example, great tool, but you know carry all, like, no one's going to rush to buy that purse, or there will be people who rush to buy that purse, but there are still going to be people buying Birkins.
That's right. At 15K a pop and a
Yes,
waiting list of
at
6
least.
years. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And an initiation, which I wasn't aware of. You actually have to purchase a certain number of Hermes products prior to being
Yes.
eligible to buy a Birkin.
Yes. And then your sales associate gets to decide if you're worthy or not. Like, it's
Oof.
bizarre, but people do it, and you're like, this is just this is to carry something. I can get a $10 purse.
Wait, so here's my philosophical question. Is the job to be done of that purse to put me in a different social strata? That is the job that that purse is doing? Is the job the purse is doing giving me psychological safety, prestige, um, social standing among my peers? Is that the job that it is doing? Is that what Clay would argue?
That is what Clay would argue. And it's true but simplified. Everything is, I always think of it as a bundle of jobs. Like, you know, you want to, like, the Birkin has to have a bottom so it will hold your things. Like,
Right.
nobody would buy a Birkin without a bottom. So there are
Right.
right. So there are functional jobs that have to be done. And
Mhm.
there are emotional jobs that it's doing for you, making you feel confident, making you feel important, making you feel stylish, and social jobs. And everybody, as you imagine kind of these bundles of jobs, everyone has different importance, you know,
Like
graved
a
on each
mixing
of them.
board, right? How much
Exactly.
you're right. I might be fine with a $5,000 bag as opposed to a 15 or
Right.
$50,000 bag. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, but there's definitely a social jobs to be done component of Birkin where there isn't for, the purse I bought under duress at a Kmart several years ago because I had forgotten to bring a purse on vacation.
Mhm. Been there.
Yeah. That was functional, and I don't care that it's a Kmart purse. I just need something to hold my wallet.
Yeah. Um, and you might wind up loving it more than
Yeah.
anything else.
I still have it.
By the way, for those listening to this call who don't know what a Birkin bag is, I strongly encourage you to ask the women in your lives and or go and find out what some of the biggest drivers in luxury goods are that are fueling a huge market that might inspire you to come up with a luxury level um, line within your own innovation schema.
Yes.
So this is a fascinating conversation because I think so many of us get caught up on just trying to present our innovations across different stage gates too, right? It's a different story that
Mhm.
we're at ideation versus we have an MVP or we're putting it through the Bases machine now.
Yes.
We're almost at ready to launch and scale. Um, so thank you so much for that conversation, Robyn. I think so many of my listeners are going to stop for a minute and say, number one, am I willing to die on this hill,
Mhm.
for this innovation that I am working out? What would I really be willing to sacrifice because I believe in it so strongly? Am I presenting the right data and the right story to the right listener? So be sure to stop and take a second and say, what's my story to the CTO versus the CFO versus the COO about how we're going to get this done? And then think about the 5 chapters to your story. Um, does your innovation story include a vision for what's to come next if it works and maybe if it doesn't?
Yeah.
Uh, so take into account the potential objections that you might get along the way, but allow your listener to actually imagine a better future with your innovation in it. So,
Mhm.
Robyn, I'm going to conclude our conversation the way I do with all of my guests, which is to ask you the big 3 innovation storytellers question.
Okay.
Are
All
you
right.
ready?
I'm as ready as I will be. All right, let's do it.
What is the greatest innovation of all time?
Greatest innovation of all time. The pencil.
Fantastic. Couldn't get anything down without it.
I couldn't get anything down without it. And I would say the pencil version 2, which the original pencil did not have an eraser. And I think adding an eraser to the pencil was key because then, you didn't have to cross something out. You could just erase your mistake and try again.
Oh my God, I love that. And you can cheat at mini golf with your family standing right there.
Also,
Yeah.
also a huge benefit.
Yeah, I would go to a different mini golf with my family on vacation if there were erasers on the end of that pencil, but there aren't. They're always just those short little stubby pencils.
I think that may be for a reason now that we're
Yeah,
talking
they know
about it.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They know me. Number 2, because we're here to dispel this myth of the genius solo innovator. If you could join any innovation team in the course of human history, which team would you have joined?
Mhm. I would have joined, honestly, probably some recency bias, but I would join, the Open AI or the Anthropic team
Mm,
because I think there are real, very, very important questions around humans and AI and where the sweet spot is. And there's lots of talk around, oh gosh, AI is going to replace us. It's not going to replace us, but how can we have it augment us? And what is the story to tell that helps humans figure out how to live with this incredible technology versus be afraid of it or misuse it or any of the other things that as humans we will inevitably do.
right. And if you employers out there could stop terrifying people with that
Mm,
message of
yes, that would
be
be great
replaced,
too.
that would be super helpful.
Mm,
Um, while UPS lays off 43,000 workers and
right.
I'm another 16.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
and my last question is, what is the innovation that the world needs now?
I think the world needs now, I cannot believe I'm saying this. What the world needs now is ideally like a single source of truth,
Mm.
or at least a perfect fact checker. Because it's gotten so hard to know what is true and what is not anymore. I mean, I remember 10, 15 years ago, Stephen Colbert, when he had his show on Comedy Central, talking about truthiness and how it was funny and that was a big joke and truthiness. And I'm like, we are living in an age of truthiness and it is not awesome. So I think we need a perfect fact checker.
Oh, I love that. ChatGPT, create a perfect fact checker for me, please, which is
Yes.
hysterical considering all the time.
Considering all the other things that are going on. Yes, exactly.
Robyn, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. You can always go to my website, which is MileZero.io. You can shoot me an email there, or even just schedule time, or, look me up on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Robyn Bolton, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you. This was fabulous.
I truly hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you did, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss the next story that could inspire your own. And if you want to learn more about me or how I can help you and your team to become master storytellers to get your big idea to its finish line, head over to innovationstorytellers.com and schedule a call with me.